Happy Mushoku Mondays, everybody. Welcome back to yet another trek through the Mushoku Tensei Jobless Reincarnation, the novel series. We are on now, I am on Volume 8, Chapter 1. But of course, we still have to kind of wrap up things in Volume 7. So this will kind of include Epilogue and Extra Chapter of Volume 7, as well as start to creep into Volume 8. And I could not be more excited. As I got into Volume 8, I'm like, holy crap, there's characters showing up that I remember. We've been so isolated in Volume 7 that I kind of miss these characters. But as per usual, thank you everybody who drops by for the premieres, everybody that supports the channel, all the comments, all the likes, all those that support us on Patreon, our tips link, our super thanks, all the members of the YouTube channel. I greatly appreciate everybody's support through all this stuff. It's been amazing. You guys are awesome. But yes, with that said, I do want to get through all this stuff, so we should start really quickly. I want to knock all this out in this one video, but we'll see. As per usual, you can see it in the title. But anyways, let's kick off Epilogue of Volume 7. And we'll see how long I can wear this shirt and it not get too hot in here. I wear the other shirt because it's really nice and cool. Anyways, jumping into Epilogue of Volume 7, Rudius has spent about a year with Soldat, kind of traveling from town to town. They started with the third largest city of the Duchy of Netis. Then they went to the capital of oh my gosh, these names, Gyuronzu, which is the headquarters of Thunderbolt, which of course is the one that Stepped Leader is a part of, that clan. Then they went to the city of Caleron. Caroleon. My gosh, these names. At the very edge of the Renoa Kingdom. Of course, Rudius was still working independent from Soldat. He was still doing a lot of jobs, his usual routine of joining groups, getting his name out there. But he would, of course, help Stepped Leader on missions as well. It was kind of nice that they didn't really treat him like a nuisance. In fact, they welcomed him in, even though he got that sense of, oh, what has Soldat dragged in now? I was mentioning this in the previous video, this idea of these people kind of assuming that most of them has had that same experience with Soldat. They were kind of people that he kind of pulled in. Again, he mentioned that with the whole idea that whenever somebody got close to each other, they would kick them out because they didn't want relationship within the group. So he's constantly looking for people. And it seems like a lot of people that he dragged in had problems, just like Rudius did. At this point, Rudius is acknowledging that he really doesn't even know what happened to Counter Arrow after that whole incident. He still kind of wishes that he's seen Sarah again, but he felt that that was better this way. Having a relationship with Sarah and Counter Arrow was kind of against his objectives of going out there and get his name out. Again, he was pretty much locked down in Rosenberg, which was technically a bad thing. Even though I'd argue that that's not really the answer to your problems. You could still part ways on a good note. You don't have to just say, well, it's good though, because I didn't need to be there anyways. But even Rudius himself acknowledges. He said that he really does wish that he can clear things up. But at the same time, it wasn't worth the stress. Again, this is his nature of, I don't want to confront the issue and have to deal with the stress that comes with confronting the issue. Just like I was mentioning with the Milshin and the idea that he had this fallout with Paul, and his reaction there was run away rather than go back. He was puking because he thought about that feeling of going back and talking with him. His focus was looking for Zenith. That was his priority. He didn't need to waste time mulling over women like Edis and Sarah. Relationships with women were just not necessary. He had no need to cling to regrets, which meant that, yes, he's pretty much avoiding all advances of females. He didn't want to get his hopes high again and just go limp. He figured after he found Zenith, he'll work on fixing Frank, basically. But anyhow, he's made advancements. His name has become known throughout the entire 3 magic nations. This is where we cut east of the 3 magic nations. In one of the small countries spread throughout the northern territories, we find 2 men who are talking in an adventure guild. One of the men mentions that the country is done for soon. The people have no spirit whatsoever, and it seems like there's a rumor that the Prime Minister is eager to go to war. Which, yes, in his perspective, when a nation is backed up into a corner, war typically is the only option. So it's done for. Besides these 2 adventurers, there's only 2 other people in this adventure guild. It's kind of noting the fact that this place is empty. There's not much on the board. Nobody has money to pay adventurers to help them with problems. One was the receptionist, and one was a woman talking to the receptionist. Honestly, when the country was first established, it was a powerful nation in the northern territories. But unlike the 3 magic nations, it failed to develop magic. And it wasted all of its resources and produced nothing. So again, now it's doomed to fail. It's only a matter of time before it declared war or somebody just came in and destroyed it, which would probably be a good thing because then somebody else of leadership can come in there and hopefully re-spark the nation. The men changed subjects and began talking about a powerful mage that has been joining parties. One of them heard that he joined a group of 20 people and took down a red worm straggler, which is a huge feat. Typically, it takes a minimum of 40 people, as we'll find out later. But he says that this guy is kind of weird in the idea that he doesn't really take much of the money in return. And he kind of found it odd that no major nation or anybody has really kind of came after him to recruit him. Yes, like we found out with Chiron, having a really powerful mage is a huge asset to a kingdom. But then one of them mentioned the name, Quagmire Rudius. That was his name. Suddenly, one of the only other people in this very barren adventure guild came rushing to his side. A woman, an elf, a first-rate warrior, slender but muscular. Could you share that story with me in a little more detail? She said with a flirtatious expression. Yes, we all know who this is gonna be. We all know who this is gonna be. Isn't there anything you can remember? For instance, where he might have been last spotted, or anything like that. I think, yes, come on, try your best. If you can remember, I'll let you have your way with me. Suddenly, this guy's brain just went into overdrive, seeking every side of his brain possible to find some details on this guy, because yes, he's very enticed by that offer. Oh, I remember, Basharant. It was the third largest city of Basharant. Pippin. My, is that so? Thank you. So I finally found you. She carried the man off for his reward. Though, it seemed like she was more bent on having sex than him. She even went so far to say, hey, do you want to do outside? I mean, I don't mind. She didn't really mind where they did it. And here's the funny part, because yes, the men would spend some time wondering if the events that happened that day were a dream. Unable to forget about that night they spent with her, they lingered in that country until war was upon them. This writer, I swear, I think he has a knack for comedy like that. These guys were talking about leaving this place. It was doomed to be destroyed by war. And yet they didn't leave the town because they were too busy thinking about that night they spent with this lady. But yes, we cut to this lady saying just a bit further. Her skin looked lustrous the next morning as she set out for Basharant's third largest city, Pippin. The woman's name was Ellen Elise Dragon Road, and she had only one objective: to tell Rudius Greyrat that his mother had been found. She hasn't really been found. This is what I really hate about this, and I had that same feeling in Volume 8. She technically hasn't been found. They know where she's located at, but she's not safe yet. That's what frustrates me so much reading this stuff. Anyways, I'm getting ahead of myself, but no, that was a fantastic chapter. I just got a huge kick out of it. The moment that she spoke up, I'm like, oh, it's totally her. And yeah, of course, she immediately beds somebody. The moment that we see her again, she beds somebody. Now, my big question mark, and I had it throughout going into Volume 8, is where the heck is Bodygotti? Where's Bodygotti? They never mention him. Where is he? He's just like hanging out outside of town the whole time. I guess technically he's a demon, and him going into some random village is probably going to raise a bunch of question marks, so I guess I can see that. But even when we get into Volume 8, they never mention the idea that he's like outside of the town or something. Ellen Elise never really mentions Bodygotti. Like, you would think that he'd go, well, yeah, Ellen Elise at some point mentioned that there's this guy Bodygotti that's waiting outside the town. He wants to meet Rudius. The dude wants to meet Rudius. Did he get sidetracked somewhere? Did Ellen Elise just completely ditch him at some point because she doesn't like him? Maybe he forced himself on her too many times on the boat ride, and so she's like, I just don't want to have anything to do with this guy. I'm ditching. I don't know. Maybe we'll eventually find out. But yeah. Moving on, extra chapter, The Ruler of the Renoa University of Magic. Quite a title. Quite a title. So we get a little bit of established lore here amongst the three magic nations. The Renoa Kingdom in particular, it was famous for its magical education, producing a number of exceptional mages. 100 years prior, as leader of the alliance between the three nations, Renoa had established the magic city of Shariah. 3 prestigious organizations, one from each country, were based in the city: the Duchy of Neris's Magical Implements Workshop, the Duchy of Basharant's Magicians Guild, and the Renoa University of Magic, the most famous of the 3. There were tales told of the attendees, who included the court magicians of the 3 nations, the faculties of the magical academies in Ashra Kingdom, and some adventurers who had left their mark in the world. Then there was the songs about the adventurers like Roxy Magurdia, an alumnus of the university, which I would argue part of that's Rudius' fault. I wonder how much of that spread over the West. Technically, that was mostly the Demon Continent, but still. It was a mammoth of a school that varied in curriculum that went beyond just magic, which that was kind of one of the question marks I actually had. Is this just strictly a magic training place, which seems like that's not the case. Which technically makes sense when we get into the letter that Rudius eventually receives. This is where we focus in on the university itself. At this academy, currently its student body numbered over 10,000. That's a lot of people. That is a big, big school. It kind of makes me kind of beg for the moment that we actually get a visual of this in the anime itself and seeing just the scale of this academy. It's got to be huge if it has 10,000 people in the student body. I mean, yes, you can argue that there's a lot of people that might be a part of the student body that aren't necessarily in the facilities, but you would imagine that most of them will be there. But yes, one such student that had enrolled in this institute was Ariel Anemoi Asura. Yes, the princess herself. I'm surprised they actually used the name Asura. At the academy, she was popular as ever. All the students, men, women, looked upon her in admiration. Even Luke and Fitz, who always stood at her side, were something that existed in a higher dimension to the rest. At this moment, rumors were spreading that Lady Ariel was looking for exceptional people, trusted retainers for the moment that she returned to her kingdom. Which is interesting because we started getting this whole element, and it's pretty much a key portion of this chapter, so I'm probably getting ahead of myself here, but it really does feel like we kind of got a sense of that when she was first fleeing from the kingdom. The question mark was, why is she fleeing to this academy? Why wouldn't she want to fulfill the request of her previous guardsmen? The hope here is it seems like since she didn't really have any allies there anymore, she failed. She's fleeing to go up to the north, and there she's essentially looking for people that she can recruit. Powerful, exceptional people that she can go back and fight with. Now, my mind immediately goes to, it makes perfect sense that she doesn't need an army. Yes, she needs an army. She's obviously probably still going to look for influence. But to be perfectly honest, she doesn't need a massive army. Again, there's power in certain people that they can excel. Again, a prime example is Ghislaine. Ghislaine. I got to start forcing myself to say Ghislaine because everybody... we had this big long conversation on Discord about pronunciations. I'm getting it. But with Ghislaine, in her extra chapter after the displacement, what happened? She was knocking out an entire army. Again, some people are so powerful, they can stand up against armies of people. And so if she can find the exceptional people like Rudius, Ghislaine, and yes, some other people they mentioned in this particular chapter, one specific that was kicked out of the Chiron Kingdom, she can use these people to essentially take over the throne. Because one thing that Ariel said specifically was that the kingdom was doomed, or at least her, what was his name, Derek? I think his name was Derek. Yes, Derek. One thing that Derek said was that the kingdom was getting soft. This kingdom was weakened. It was losing its strength. They were so caught up in their comforts that they technically could find themselves facing threat. And that's the complacency that every kingdom kind of faces, Chiron Kingdom and whatnot. They get complacent, they get comfortable, they get stuck in their own infighting that eventually somebody's going to come in and destroy them. And he wanted Ariel to stand up and reclaim that pride of the kingdom itself, strengthen it. So it doesn't give us much feeling like this kingdom is well defended. She could easily find exceptional people, come down, and reclaim it. But again, I'm getting ahead of myself. It wasn't just their looks and their skill that made everybody love Ariel, Luke, and Fitz. It was also due to the events that happened several years back. So I'm going to jump back in time when Ariel first came there. After Ariel lost her political battle in Ashura Kingdom, she fled to Renoa Kingdom and was received with protection. Seems like this kingdom brought her in and defended her. She lost most of her attendees during the trip there, and she was left with 4. Luke, Nodos Greyrat, Elamoy Blue Wolf, this name, Cleane, I'm guessing, Cleane Elrond, and Fitz. There she enrolled in the University of Magic. Of course, she didn't give up on her hopes of regaining the Ashura Kingdom. She needed power, though. So she concocted an idea to scout exceptional talent at Renoa's University. Again, this is a place that has people coming there that end up making a mark in the world itself. To accomplish this objective, Ariel decided to strengthen her influence at the school itself. She set her sights on the student council, which was seen as the pinnacle of the school. Within a few months, she quickly established herself and was accepted into the student council. While Fitz felt like this was enough reputation to be able to scout people, Ariel felt it wasn't enough. She had her sights set on gaining support from both the leaders of the country itself and the Adventure Guild, which was influential in Asura. So this is where we get into my theory, but more expanded, and the idea that she doesn't just need people to fight. She's also looking to gain favor from this entire nation itself and the Magician's Guild, which, yes, has its powers within Asura itself. It's already embedded in there. She had to impress them to gain their favor, using power. Show them that she can be a ruler, become someone who moves the council itself. In other words, she had to become the president. She aimed for VP, knowing the president's gonna graduate and then the VP would usually take the spot. She would then take that position. Currently, the only thing that Ariel had was her natural born charisma. The only reason that she was accepted as a first year into the student council was because she had the adoration of the students. However, it's been 6 months since she enrolled, and she had yet to recruit any allies. Yes, some people had already caught her eyes, but let's be honest, she can't really convince them to fight alongside her in a war, essentially. She wasn't ready to reveal the truth of her situation yet. Now, the whole process for the presidency of the student council is that once the president themselves has retired or graduated, then it would go to a vote to the student body. And typically, that would always kind of favor into the VP of the current student council. So this made things difficult because once the president retires, it'd go to the VP would be there for another year, and then once they retired, it would go to probably one of the other remaining members who are only in their 6th to 7th year. So Fitz decided to bring up something that shocked Ariel. Fitz proposed that she take presidency next year. Take it from the current VP, which made sense to Ariel. If she can gain presidency in her 2nd year by a landslide vote, that would be historical to the school itself. She would be the talk of the city in Shariah. The word of her accomplishment would easily reach the leaders of the 3 magic nations. But Fitz wasn't without a plan. Fitz was currently looking into the masterminds that were behind Ariel being bullied in the school. Things like spitting in her path, bumping shoulders with her, water balls during practice. Yes, even stealing her pantsu and putting it in front of the door at the men's dorm. The masterminds were Linnea and Persina. Finally get to meet Linnea. I've seen Linnea before. Was waiting to see Linnea. Yes, for those that don't remember, Linnea was the eldest daughter of Geas, of the Doldia tribe, the brother of Ghislaine. These were 2 girls that traveled all the way from the Great Forest to attend the school. They had pampered upbringings and let their magical talents get to their heads. They became delinquents, and they were feared by the student body, walking with an entourage of 20+ fierce-looking beast folk in tow. Just I have this like mental image of like this cat girl and this puppy girl walking around like and having like this big old entourage following them like some Yakuza gang or something. It just immediately comes to my mind. Fitz's plan was simple. Crush them. He's been wanting to ever since they insulted her by putting her underwear in front of the boys' dorm. But not only did that, additionally, they left a note there, claiming that they were from the princess of Asura. But they had to be careful not to ruin the name of the school itself. The school had been doing nothing to them this entire time because they didn't want to rupture relationships with the Beastfolk tribe. So the idea was to provoke them. Thus, it was self-defense. This cuts to the cafeteria, where they enact their plan. First, they bump into them. After Linnea and her entourage make some comments about Ariel's underwear being placed at the men's dorm, Ariel spoke up. Now, this was a key point of the plan itself. Again, retaliation. So Ariel pretty much enacted a skill that she kind of learned through her life in royalty. She whispered very quietly so that only the ears of Linnea and Persina would hear it. And she spoke in a way that you couldn't see her lips moving, parading around with 20 men in tow, like some kind of herd. It seems the Doldia are really no better than animals. Immediately, Linnea's fur was puffed up, and Persina spit out a chicken bone. It seems like Persina apparently just is always eating, like she's a glutton. Linnea confronted Ariel. "What did you say?" Linnea said. "I didn't say anything," Ariel replies. "Well, go on. Try saying that again, Mew. This time, do it to our faces." Persina speaks up. "Or you can prostrate yourself. Get on your back and show us your belly. Don't tell me you're chickening out, Mew." "Chicken? I want to eat chicken. What on earth is this about?" Once again, Ariel whispers so that only they can hear. "Once this year's mating season's over, you'll be having the children of men whose names you don't even know, just like mutts on a street." You have some nerve. Fine, we'll fight you, Mew. We'll beat the crap out of you, strip you naked, and dump water all over you. They descended upon Ariel, but Ariel never moved. Instead, the pack was sent flying. It was Fitz, using silent casting. He quickly blasted them away. Although the other 20 was pretty much wiped out, Linnea and Persina continued to return their attack. They even tried using the signature Doldia roar to stun Fitz, but he lifted his hand and slapped his ear. Blood burst forward. He then sent a shockwave into Linnea's stomach, knocking her back. Then another wave from an outstretched fist, sending Persina flying into the wall. Fitz towered over Linnea with a murderous look behind his glasses. At this point, Linnea chose that she wanted to discard her pride before her life. She apologized, even exposed her belly on her back in Doldia fashion. If you truly learned your lesson, never raise your hand against the Princess Ariel again. This was the first time that anyone in the school, besides Ariel and her attendants, had heard Fitz's voice. It was high and feminine. They're finally starting to hint it. At this point, Ariel and her group left as if nothing happened, with an applause from the students. The gang of bullies had been taken down. Elamoy and Cleone spread rumors throughout the school that Linnea and Persina had sent minions to attack Ariel, and a majority of the beastfolk involved were expelled. Finally, the school took action. Finally, the school decided to take action. After this event, she gained the admiration of the students and easily won the vote for presidency in her second year. Of course, the VP was not happy about it. Wasn't really much they can do about it, besides just sitting there quietly for their remaining year. And by her third year, she had already started making contact with the Magicians Guild and the rulers of the Renoa Kingdom. She got exactly what she was aiming for. She's already starting to pull in the leaders. At this point, Ariel had begun picking the most exceptional of minds that flocked to the student council, the most trustworthy to go to the Osfer Kingdom and proceed with her plans. Everything was going well, and today they were conducting yet another strategy meeting. Ariel wanted to check up on the promising candidates that were amongst the first years. Amongst them, there we go, Zenoba Chiron, a blessed child. Cliff Grimoire, able to perform advanced tier magic even before he enrolled. So yes, we have two named figures that we've had in the past. Again, for those that don't remember, Zenoba Chiron was the guy that was obsessed with figures way back in the Chiron Kingdom that eventually got Rudius freed from Pax. And yes, Cliff Grimoire was the son of the Pope way back in Milshin when Eris went on her little goblin slaying thing. Which makes me know that if Rudius goes to this academy, he's finally going to have to make good on his word and make a figure. Still, that wasn't enough for Ariel's plans. She questioned about seeking outside the school itself for recruits, to which Elamoy spoke up. He knew that she was going to ask about it. There was some particularly impressive individuals beyond the walls of the university. Ariel agreed to this proposal, assuming that she could ask the vice principal, Genius, to aid in inviting them to school. There was several different individuals on this list. Those living in the magic city of Shiraya. Active adventures across the three nations. Even the protector of the sword sanctum, the sword god Galfalion himself. What? What? I don't know. I don't know if that's going to work. I'd be very impressed if we end up finding out that he goes to the university. Yes, again, for those that don't know, that's Ghislaine's master. The one that took Ghislaine in and trained her. Pretty crazy. Suddenly, Fitz, looking at the list, gasped. He had seen a name he had recognized, and his eyes widened. Fitz, did something catch your eye? The boy gave a sharp nod. His expression was a mix of surprise, bewilderment, and delight. Princess Ariel, I know this person. The paper in his hand had the name Rudius Greyrat written on it. And that's Volume 7. Yes, that's Volume 7. We are done with Volume 7. First of all, and I know that everybody's already thinking about this, and we're probably already talking about it in the chat. It's a bit different than the anime. It's a little bit different than the anime. Yeah, for those who don't remember, Season 1 end was this scene. It was a scene where Fitz was in the room with Ariel and everybody in this academy. Now, what does the anime do? The anime essentially has Fitz standing there and is talking about this person that Fitz admires more than anybody. Is extremely powerful, and he looked up to them and knew them from a long time ago. It's my master. Was incredible. The person that's most special to me. The anime made it feel as if Fitz was proposing to Ariel, I know a perfect person that you should recruit. It's this guy that I know from a long time ago. He's amazing. It's Rudius. I look up to him. Taught me everything. The novel is putting more emphasis on that Rudius. achieved a name for himself. All of Volume 7 was Rudius making a name for himself. He got his name out there. He got recognition, and then they found him. Proposed that list to Ariel. Fitz picks it up, looks in the list, and sees Rudius. Rudius got himself in that academy. In the anime, Fitz is getting him into the academy, which is kind of weird. Again, it kind of, by Fitz suggesting Rudius, it's pulling away everything that Rudius has achieved. Killing a straggler red worm. Technically by himself. Anyways, not that big of a deal, but still, it's one of those things of like, that's kind of a weird choice. Kind of changes things a little bit. It's sort of like the whole situation with Roxy when she took Rudius out to do his big exam, essentially, for becoming a water saint. In the anime, the lightning comes down and strikes the horse, and Rudius has to tell her to heal. It's like it kind of sort of changes the perspective of the person's achievements and how they act. But anyways, really cool chapter. I was actually pretty fascinated by this chapter overall because, yes, it's a very quick chapter, and yes, shrug at taking down the bullies or whatever, but the main key thing here and the juicy bit here is really getting an idea of the plans that Ariel has. Is essentially she's trying to use her charisma to gain favor of the people around her. She's not using power, she's not using strength, she's not beating people up, technically Fitz was. She's using her charm and the allure to people to her to gain the best of the best. And yes, through her actions in the school, she's gaining attention of people outside of the school. Because again, this is a prestigious school where the biggest of minds come out of it. It's a very important university. It's the biggest magic university out there. So if she can gain placement in the student council, it makes sense that those outside of the academy would take note of it. And that's her shoe in. All she needs to do is talk to these people. And with her charisma, she can gain favor from them. They will obviously see, oh, this is the princess of the Asura Kingdom. I'd rather her lead that place than what's currently there. So let's back her up. She's obviously got the charisma and the backing of people, very exceptional people. We can do this. They're obviously going to back her up. So it's a really cool plan that she set out, and I liked how they've kind of laid it out, especially in such an important location. But yes, we need to get Rudius there. So that gets us into Volume 8 of Mushoku Tensei Jobless Reincarnation, the novel series. Let's jump into it. Prologue. It is now 5 years after the Fatoa displacement incident, so that means that Rudius is now technically around 15. After the reports of Saros, Philip, Hilda, and Edis Boreas Greyrat's death, high-ranking Minister Darius Silva Ganius cut off funding to track down survivors. While some continued to search, this meant that the search and rescue squad was officially disbanded. So they've given up, pretty much. The refugee camp switched their focus to reclaiming their livelihood, which they technically were already doing that when Rudius was leaving, but whatever. As far as the Asura Kingdom was concerned, the incident was officially over. Though, those that were affected were far from over it. That is kind of one of those little sad elements of the idea of the kingdom kind of moving on. Which again, yes, technically 5 years is a long time, but this is a very massive incident. And the scale of this displacement of people is insane if you think about it. It was now the year 422 of the Armored Dragon. The Duchy of Boshrant was one of the 3 great magic nations. Its 3rd largest city was Pippin, and that is where we find Quagmire Rudius, having become the talk of the town. He continued his exercise routine as usual, his prayer rituals, the holy relic. Yes, we went through all that again. I'm not going to reread all that crap. I do find it fascinating that this writer loves to kind of, I guess, recap people. I found that it does that a lot with like each volume. It almost feels like he takes this opportunity to kind of remind people that Rudius is looking for his family. The displacement incident happened. Oh yeah, by the way, Rudius broke up with Edis. I kind of don't like that about this writer. It's almost as if he's trying to fill in people that are just jumping into the novel. Because for the longest time, it even had it mentioning that Rudius was an isekai from another world. And it's like, do you really have to keep repeating this stuff? We know this. Again, maybe it's just that aspect of how they felt they wanted to sell the novel to people. I understand things like reminding people who Elisa is or something like that, but do you have to remind people of who Rudius is? Anyways, side rant, I'm done. We get a little bit of more information around Steppe Leader at this point. Steppe Leader, of course, being part of the Thunderbolt clan, they did work across the lands of Basharant. They were led by Soldat Heckler, and it was an S-rank party. It currently had 6 members, 2 swordsmen, 1 warrior, 2 healing magicians, and 1 offensive mage. They had 1 other member, a mage, but unfortunately they kicked the bucket. Due to this, Soldat was occasionally inviting Rudius to join the party, which, of course, Rudius declined. But he was still trying to make a name for himself, so he would still join Soldat for quests. Which so happens they had one particular job to do today. Hunt a red worm straggler in the north. A keen way to boost his rep. But Steppe Leader was not enough for this. A party alone would be suicide. It seems this task had gotten many hyped up for it. 5 total parties were signed up for this raid. The S-rank party Steppe Leader, an A-rank party Rod Knights, an A-rank party Iron Cluster Corps, an A-rank party Cave Amond. Cave Amond? What? What are these names? I want backstories on all these names. I actually wanted to, at some point, write down all of these group names or party names because each one of them technically has a story. I know, like, with Blaze, Roxy mentioned that he was just always terrible at making names. But anyways, the final was A-rank party, the Drunkard's Nonsense. That one makes sense. That one makes perfect sense for an adventurer. They're all drunkard nonsense. I get to see a bunch of drunk adventurers going, hey man, let's make a party. Yeah, let's make a party. What do we name it? Drunkard Nonsense. Yeah, that's great, man. Make that the name. The lady behind the counter is like, okay. That was 25 people in total. But the minimum recommendation for a straggling worm is 7 parties of 40 people. So they were pretty short on it. Soldat at this point was flustered over the lack of volunteers. Yelling in the Adventure Guild, where is everybody at? I mean, this is like a bunch of 1,000 gold you can get. Somebody commented on the idea that most of the S ranks are probably out checking out the newly discovered labyrinth, which is probably the one that Soldat was talking about. Maybe? At this point, Cave A dropped out. They're like, forget it. It's not going to work out. They walked away. And in desperation, fearing that more would walk away, Soldat immediately called out to them. All right, we're good. More reward for us. Let's go, guys. And nobody spoke up. Nobody wanted to talk back at that point. So everybody just kind of shuffled behind him. All 21 of them. Along the way, Rudius would periodically use a pillar of earth to shoot himself up to scout out at Soldat's orders. Some point, he noticed a cloud of dust from the snow moving towards them. It was Luster Grizzly. They had spotted them. Immediately, everybody sprung into action. Rudius immediately places down a quagmire. And as they were taking him out, they realized the red worm was there. Rudius had missed him. Apparently, the grizzlies were fleeing from the red worm, and he was hidden in the cloud of snow behind them. They were at a disadvantage. There was no way they were going to do this. Their plan was to find the red worm first and do a surprise attack. They couldn't do this. They had to flee. So Rudius created a smoke screen with deep mist, cooking the snow and creating a vapor. At this point, the red worm identified its primary threat. It was Rudius. It immediately charged after Rudius, and Rudius chose to flee in the opposite direction as everybody else was going, to give them time to flee. And thankfully, because he's been exercising every single day, he was quite fast, and so he was basically leading this worm in a circle, till eventually it got frustrated and started to spew flames out at Rudius. He used a wall of water to defend himself, and in return, Rudius shot stone cannon with high velocity at the worm, piercing its scales. It roared in anger. After a barrage of these stone cannons, eventually the red worm understood that within that little package of Rudius was a threat, was a power, and so it decided to flee. But it got stuck in Rudius's quagmire that he laid earlier, and he began to sink in there. Rudius comments, oh, it got stuck in there. With that, Rudius fired one last enormous stone cannon and wiped it out. I really love the emphasis in this segment to how calm Rudius is. We sort of got that same indication with Volume 7, and they sort of get into it later. And it's funny that it kind of rubbed me the wrong way, but then I realized it later, so I guess I can talk about it here. Is that yes, Rudius mentions that after the whole incident with Orsted, he doesn't really fear things anymore. Like, he literally just kind of casually goes, oh, it's stuck in there. Oh, big large stone cannon kills it. Like, he's very calm in combat. And he sort of attributes it to the fact that, how can I be afraid of a red worm? How can I be afraid of luster grizzlies when I've technically experienced the embodiment of death that is Orsted? Somebody that just wiped the floor with Resurd and nearly killed me. It makes sense. I would argue that I think even if you go through something like that, it doesn't mean that you can't be scared again. But it just goes to the degree of suffering that he went through in facing the terrifying threat that was Orsted. After it was dead, the other adventurers, slowly one by one, returned to the scene. People claiming, gosh, I knew you were strong, but not that strong. Even some of them going, man, I'm sorry that I ever doubted your stories about traveling through the demon continent. In the end, Rudius decided to let them all divide the spoils, despite Solo killing it. They would each grab what they could, and they would burn the remains to prevent it from becoming a zombie dragon. I thought that was something that was specific to the demon continent, but apparently not. I figured Rudius would said this, and they would go like, no, man, that doesn't happen here. What are you talking about? But apparently it's something that happens everywhere. I guess it makes sense, because all it really takes is a high concentration of mana to essentially make it become a zombie dragon. So, and this is technically should be a high concentrated area because the kingdom's there. Again, I'm assuming that there's going to be some sort of ley line there that makes it perfect for the academy to be there. After turning in, he returns to the inn for a meal. He gives thanks to his god, and then retires for the day. The next day, Rudius finds himself alone and very wealthy. He wasn't lonely, he claimed. He hated crowds. On the stage was a group of troubadours, the Big Boys Orchestra. They were lacking, and they were attempting to sing basically the adventures of him slaying this red worm. They actually pressed him for the story so they could sing it. Rudius was criticizing them, but at the same time acknowledged the fact that he's always kind of sucked at music. He even tried Vocaloid. They actually name-dropped Vocaloid, which I'm surprised. And yes, he failed miserably at it. Since then, he told most people that asked him if he can play an instrument that the only thing that he knew was ass slapping. Yes, slapping his butt. As the Big Boy Orchestra was playing, somebody called out that the story was boring, which hurt Rudius because technically he was the protagonist of the story. Suddenly, the doors of the pub flung open. I finally found you, Rudius the Quagmire. She was an elf, long blonde hair and thick ringlets. She was an adventurer, but garbed in a dress with a backpack, sword and shield upon her hip. She had large, narrow eyes, pointed ears, incredibly thin, with a flat chest. I like the fact that he keeps mentioning the pointy ears in the segment, even though I summarized it. It's just like, did I mention she has pointy ears? He just immediately gravitates to elves. Rudius kind of replies nonchalantly, so, you found me, eh? He honestly didn't know who this lady was. But he figured based on the fact that he's getting his name out there, obviously people are going to be drawn to him or find out about him. Maybe it was somebody that was just wanting to thank him. You stick out like a sore thumb, just like I was told you would. I found you immediately. Wait, you said finally just a second ago, didn't you? I thought you would be further east. Her beautiful eyes was staring straight at him. Her mouth... Her mouth was watering for some reason. No, nothing at all. She cleared her throat and sat next to him. The pubs had oohs and ahs and whispers of Rudius having a woman all along, which just becomes like an ongoing thing throughout this entire next 2 chapters. She scooted close to him, real close. He thought, careful, girl. If you fall for me, you'll get burned. Again, this is Rudius still considering that if any woman gets next to him, it's going to end in failure. Don't bother. You're just going to leave and call me a disaster like everybody else does. My name is Elisa Dragonroad. I'm your father Paul's former party member. Oh, and I'm also Roxy's friend. Rudius immediately perked up and leaned towards her. What? My master? Where is she? This was, of course, the one that was keeping him going throughout all these years, so he's super excited about it. More importantly, she whispered in his ear, I heard you killed a red worm all by yourself, didn't you? Yeah, well, it was basically in death's door anyways. Now I understand why Roxy was so proud of you. Am I getting enough ASMR in here? Now I know why Roxy was so proud of you. I can't do it. I can't match Elise. I can't. Now this is the part where he actually mentioned that, yes, after facing Orsted, things don't really scare him anymore. He's able to kind of keep himself calm in combat. So even with the whole situation with the red worm, he wasn't that terrified. I'm tickled to pink to hear that my teacher's been boasting about me. No, that actually tickles. What are you doing? Apparently at this point, Elise is sitting there kind of prodding at him and poking fingers on him. Touching your chest. You're very strong. My, how quaint. Who gave you this? She was basically pointing at the pendant around his neck. Our maid. Maid? Are they an elf? Is this gonna I was like, are we finally gonna reveal this? Are we finally going to reveal this? Huh? No, they're not. My. Why are you asking that? He found himself talking like her. That's not important. At this point, she brought up her sheath with a pendant that was attached to it, the same shape, although it was more elaborate. We match, she said that snuggling up against him. They're not going to get back into it, but yes, I got a huge chuckle out of the fact that it seems like Elise has a pendant on her sheath that matches it, which just obviously implies that the pendant around your neck, Rudius, was made by an elf. Now, the big question mark is, what is the tie-in between Sylphie and the elves themselves? Again, technically, Sylphie was supposedly the daughter of an elf and a human. I guess technically still she would have a lot of tie-ins through her mother, but it still begs the question mark. And do all elves use that same pendant? I guess the big question mark is do all these elves have the same tie-in with this one sort of symbol itself? Or is at least Sylphie's bloodline somehow tied the same bloodlines as Elise? I think if that was the case, then she would be more prodding about the fact that he has this pendant. No, who made it? Please tell me more about this person that made it. It's probably something that's more generic to the Elven race. At this point, Reese is asking, do you really like me? Yes, you're a good man. More so than I anticipated. I'm surprised. I thought you'd be more of a child, but you're so muscular. It's wonderful. You're quite beautiful yourself, miss. He wasn't about to let her get him flustered, so he tilted her chin up with his finger. She slipped her hand behind the back of his head. This is not somebody you sit and tease, Rudius. She's gonna go for it. I like how he's like trying to throw her off, and then like, she immediately just like, okay, let's do this. At this point, he was expecting a kiss. Oh no, I can't. Shame on me. Please don't tease me like that. I do not tease men, but I also have no intention of becoming Paul's daughter, and I want to continue to be Roxy's friend too. She looking out for Roxy. Good girl. Rudius at this point figures, man, that fight between Paul and his party members pushed her so much that she doesn't even want to date his son. But it didn't matter. He wasn't planning on getting with anyone. So then, Miss Elise, do you have some business with me? Yes, I've brought you good news. Good news? At this point, she grinned at him. That was the day that he learned Zenith's whereabouts had been confirmed. Yay! Rudius finally knows, even though I don't like how they lay it out. Again, I still don't like the idea they're sort of laying out that, no, she's fine. She's just dungeon diving. Again, everybody believes that Zenith is just over there dungeon diving, not that she's actually trapped, which I'm assuming she's trapped. But yes, I I love Elise. I don't like her thirsty nature, but gosh dang, if I have to admit that anytime she's in a scene in this novel, it's pure comedy gold. Like these two chapters right here, the first two chapters of this volume is just pure gold. I mean, technically she kind of grabbed a chapter last volume too. But I like that whole aspect of her kind of teasing into him trying to throw it back at her, and she just kind of goes in for it. But it kind of goes into it more later on, this idea of how much she respects and controls herself. And I thought it was exclusively Roxy. Like, she had some sort of fondness for Roxy and did not want to betray Roxy. But it really does also, and that could be part of it, but they do get into it later on as well, that she's not a homewrecker. You would assume that she's a homewrecker. Sleep with everybody. But she has boundaries. Like, despite how thirsty she is, she has boundaries. And she does respect those boundaries. But again, I'm still wondering, where the hell is Body Gotti? Where the hell is Body Gotti? But yeah, I mentioned it earlier. I do like the whole aspect of the pendant. I kind of wish that she prodded that a little bit more. Maybe that'll something that we'll get into later. But it's like, just Rudius, get the hint. I guess that was the whole point. In the anime, like I said, they technically jumped right into it being Sylphie's. Whereas here, it really does feel like the writer's trying to drag this out. Like, give these subtle hints, which, again, kind of sucks that we already know the answer to that. Now, I will admit that at this point, I would probably guess it was Sylphie's. At this point, if I was only reading the novels, I would probably guess at this point it's probably Sylphie's. I wouldn't see it being something that... the only other thing I could think of is that Lilia has some sort of backstory with elves that I wasn't aware of. But again, if we think about Lilia, who's attached to Lilia, who has Lilia encountered, the only person I could think of is Sylphie. So it makes sense that this box... what she did, I think also in the novels, claimed that it was a part of his gift for his birthday. I would assume, Sylphie put something in it. I'd be curious, anybody out there that was novel only that got to this part, was this the indication that you're like, oh, That's gotta be Sylphie's. I don't want to know when you finally found out. I'm just wondering right now, at this point, did you figure out it was Sylphie? I don't want to have spoilers for later on when it actually gets revealed. I don't want to know that yet. Moving on into chapter 1. This chapter broke my heart. Oh, this chapter broke my heart. It broke my heart. A week after learning about Zenith, he found himself still in Basharant. Zenith was in the labyrinth city of Rapan at the center of the Bagrat continent. I was actually wondering where in the continent it was, so I guess I marked it pretty well. It would probably take over a year to get there, but the problem right now is that he can't go anywhere because winter's going to hit soon. But it was all... Here it is again. It was fine, though, because according to Ellen Elise, Zenith was having fun dungeon diving. I don't think she's dungeon diving. And there was no need for him to hurry there. Roxy and Paul were on their way. While Paul didn't really inspire any sort of confidence in Rudius, at least knowing that Roxy was there, he could relax. Poor Paul. Poor Paul gets no respect. It was Dangerfield. Paul gets no respect. Paul just gets no respect. The next day, Rudius continued his usual workout routine, and he kind of started including sword training at the same time, and he's been doing mock battles with kind of visions in his own mind about people he's fought, like Rajerd. Upon returning to the inn, Ellen Elise thrusted her head out of the second floor window. She greeted him with a, "Welcome back, Rudius." I can't believe I did that. Rudius. Moaning and looking off, with her shoulders completely bared, he assumed what she was doing. He thanked her, expressing how lively she looked. "It's freezing outside, so be careful not to catch a cold," he said as he walked into the inn. He realized over the past week that Ellen Elise was a massive slut. He was shocked at first, but now he's just used to it. Yep, every day she had a man in her room. Her existence was a sex crime. Gotta love this chapter. He'd join her, honestly. He's like, yeah, I would totally jump in there with her, but yes, he still had this sickness. He had ED. He's been an absolute wreck. He tried to pull himself together, try again, but failed. He still appreciated the sight of attractive women, but his friend was unusable. At this point, he was overcome with loneliness and helplessness, knowing that it was not something that somebody else could resolve. If all attempts of romance were going to end in betrayal, he was better off admiring from afar. He didn't need to hope for anything more than that. Just a taste would leave him wanting more. Leaving his room, he bumped into Ellen Elise, with Soldat's arm wrapped around her. He apologized for taking his woman. I love that everybody believes that Ellen Elise is Rudius's woman, and they're all sleeping with her, and they keep apologizing to him. It's like, why are you guys apologizing after you sleep with her? And yes, Rudius quickly clarified that she wasn't his. Still, Soldat thought he was pretty much rubbing salt on Rudius's wound. Yes, Soldat knew he had this ED and would probably love to sleep with her. Even though he was apologetic, he was really quick to answer Rudius when he asked, was it good? "It was the best," he said with expression of bliss. Though Ellen Elise boasted that all men leave her happy, which seemed to be true. Every guy from Soldat's party had felt it necessary to apologize to Rudius and then tell him how great it was. People are disgusting. People are disgusting. Again, these people are going to somebody who they think has a relationship with her to apologize, and then they proceed to tell him how great she was. People are sick. Rudius honestly didn't mind, but he really was hoping that she would deal with the aftermath on her own. He feared Soldat party may end up in chaos over this. But based on her paying Soldat, it seemed to be some sort of reverse prostitution. Like she was paying him to sleep with him. Again, this chick's thirsty. This chick's super thirsty. Which makes me wonder, actually, because I don't think that he would turn her down unless he was busy or something like that. Like, he might not be that desperate. But if she came on to him and Soldat believed that they were in a relationship, Soldat wouldn't do it. So I'm thinking that my conclusion here is that she went to Soldat and Soldat was like, wait, no, that's Rudius's girl. I can't do this. And then she literally paid him and he took it and slept with her. Oh, it's so bad. Soldat just came down a couple notches on my bro list if he thought that was true. At this point, Rudius kind of acknowledged the fact that, yes, he does know that Ellen Elise did not go down to tell Paul where Zenith was. Instead, sent Roxy down there. So he kind of cursed the fact that if she hadn't done that, Roxy would be there right now. Which, yes, I kind of mentioned that when we talked about that. It's like, crap, it sucks that she wasn't able to go on the boat because she didn't want to go see Paul. But still, he was appreciative to her. He would never know that Zenith was found, and he'd still be wandering around aimlessly. He had gone to combat with her several times. While he doesn't claim that she's, like, super powerful and damage, she was a great tank. Which, yes, to remind people, when we had Roxy was explaining the gear that Ella and Elise had, she carried a sword that was enchanted by magic, and just one swing of it would create this wind vacuum that could cut down trees. But she also wielded a shield that was actually able to essentially stop damage. Rudius goes on to say that she's a top-tier warrior, even if she doesn't match up to Reserve, which he mentions is kind of an unfair comparison. She was also, of course, an amazing seductress. Something that he experienced the first time he met her. She made him believe that she had fallen for him. Based on men being exhausted leaving her room, she was obviously amazing in bed too. At the same time, and here's what I was talking about earlier, at the same time, she didn't ignore or condescend other women. She played the part of an older sister to younger girls, giving advice, teaching them how to draw men in, and giving relationship advice. She also protected them in battle. And she respected boundaries. She didn't seduce men with partners. Key thing there. I give mad respect for this. Again, I kind of always assume that she just kind of goes around, sleeps with everybody, has no indication whatsoever for other women, boasts about it probably to those... Like, I would assume that she'd go in there and sleep with a guy and then find out that this other woman is his girl and then go over there and say how much better she was, how much he enjoyed her. Now, you can say that it's indicating so far with her, our conversations about her, that I think she's the type that could possibly break men into never being able to satisfy with other women. But that's another story. But I like that she has that boundary there. And yes, technically we experienced that with so many other stories about them. It was just always sort of whispered. This is just where we're kind of finally starting to solidify it. What happened with Zenith and Paul? She gave Zenith advice that eventually led to her locking in Paul. What did she do with Roxy? She gave Roxy advice. The moment you see him, that special someone, grab him, lock him down, do the deed, and then worry about love. She was giving Roxy honest advice. And yes, technically, Talhan mentioned that was the same advice that she gave to Zenith. She respects the boundaries of those that already have relationships, but additionally, she supports other women and helps them, guides them, gives them advice they need. Obviously, she's very experienced, but she's able to get that advice they need. I was wondering why people loved her so much. I just assumed it was because she was just banging everything that moved. It could still be that. Still, even with all that said, Rudius was afraid of the destruction that she could cause. Prideful adventurers that would be getting into a lover's quarrel. Though it seemed like she was charismatic enough that she would never let it lead to bloodshed. That's not to say that she wasn't without an infamous reputation. Apparently, in the southern area of the central continent, there was an unspoken rule to never party with her, unless under, like, special circumstances. So, apparently she made a name for herself in the southern central continent. And maybe that's going to start spreading to the north. That explanation aside, Rudius was currently partied with her. She planned to travel with him to the Begaric continent. But again, the weather made that wait. Cut forward a month, and Rudius has received a letter. Here it is. It's finally time. It was sealed with the words Renoa University of Magic on it. Rudius opened it up, and it was from Agenius Halphus. Yes, like we mentioned in the last chapter. The vice principal of Renoa University of Magic. This is the person that Ariel was mentioning she was going to have pretty much invite people from the outside. He heard of his achievements, incantationless casting, and his tutelage under the Water King Roxy. He offers him to admit him to the school, without tuition and attendance requirements, while having access to their library and facilities. If he completes one research project in 7 years, and transfers the rights of that research to the university or the Magician's Guild, he will be registered as a D-ranked guild member of the Magician's Guild, along with the rest of the graduates. Rudius honestly knew of the Magician's Guild. He just didn't really know what they did. Assuming based on the fact that the Thieves Guild dealt in the black market and sold and traded there and did a lot of slave trading, probably means that the Magician Guild did a lot of buying and selling of books of magic and magic research. Still, he didn't know why they were sending him a letter now. And honestly, at this point, he was already powerful enough as an adventurer. He didn't need to sit through seminars, and he kind of assumed it was just a scam anyways. As always, Rudius believes everything's a scam. Everything is a scam to Rudius. He did feel it was an honor, though. Proof of his efforts to get recognized. But he still had to make sure it was legitimate. So at this point, he decides to go to the Adventure Guild. As he's heading out, Elise insisted that she follows him. She thought based on what he said, which was similar to something that Paul said one time, that he was going out to find a girl. But yes, Rudius was not looking for a girl. She doesn't have to go with him. Don't say that. Think about it from my perspective. I have to go manhunting because you won't play with me. I'd be happy to play with you if you can get my little boy standing up. I'd love to try, but I can't have sex with Paul's son. Also, I promised Roxy I wouldn't. I don't want her to hate me. I love this part. Rudius was in awe that his god could make someone like Elise live in fear of her displeasure. He understood Elise not wanting Roxy to hate her, honestly. And that fact made him unable to hate her. It's like, he got like a kinship. Like they both don't want to make Roxy angered. So they're like two peas in a pod. But no, it was funny. There's like, dang, she's afraid of Roxy. Again, this is him not really kind of establishing what he said a minute ago to this. You're Roxy's, Rudius. In her eyes, you are Roxy's. And let's be perfectly honest. She wants Roxy to get it. And if you're the one that's going to give it to her, she wants to leave you to her, even though Edis already beat her to it. In the Adventure Guild, Rudius spots an A-rank party, Cave Amond. Yes, the ones that dropped out of the, the Red Worm fight. A group of 4 magicians, a mage warrior, and 3 magicians. Their leader, Conrad, confronted him about the fact that he's going on a date with his girlfriend, which Rudius fires back saying, nah, yeah, she wanted to come out and have me pick up girls, and that completely confused him. I always get a kick out of these kind of quick jabs that Rudius kind of returns to people. Anyhow, Conrad extended another invitation to Cave Amond, which Rudius once again refused. Still, Rudius questioned him about the existence of the Renoa University, which, yes, this guy attended. Conrad immediately recognized the letter. A special student, he called it. It was a title given to those that can use weird magic and adventurers who had made a name for themselves, despite not being associated with the Magicians Guild. They also picked nobles and royalty from other countries, but their focus was mostly those that had incredible magical power. As they don't have to attend classes, it's more so the university wants to list them as students. Yes, free advertisement. Basically free advertisement. To say that this prince of this one kingdom went to this academy. This is so funny because we're continuing this whole process of like essentially a big marketing campaign. Like this academy is literally legit modern times marketing. And I literally think that's on purpose. Remember what we were talking about with the books? Rudius was looking through the books and how he kind of figured this is all like this big marketing ploy to get out the name of this university. Do more of it too. But no, Rudius acknowledged this point. Okay, so it's not a scam. So he decides to inquire, what does the Magicians Guild do? Conrad explained that they sell scrolls, support the creation of magical implements, but he doesn't know the full detail on it because he's only an F rank member. Because I think he said he only went there for like 5 years. You can gain membership in the Magicians Guild if you can at least use beginner magic. The lowest tier is F, and influence in the guild increased as you ranked up. Kind of similar to the Adventure Guild, allowing you various forms of aid. Most magic schools that you went to would gain you an E rank if you graduated, but the Magic University is special as it grants you D rank membership. And if your research was fruitful, you can possibly gain C rank membership, which I'm already wondering what Rudius is going to end up getting. It's already indicating, based on this conversation later, that he's supposedly going to be researching the displacement incident, which is going to be a huge deal, I assume. So we'll see what he ends up getting for rank. In the end, Conrad suggested that Rudius should just at least go and see what they had to offer, which at this point, Rudius kind of remembers. Oh yeah, by the way, the whole purpose of me going to train Edis, before the whole displacement incident happened and everything else that happened, my original goal that I had was to go train Edis, tutor her, gain money so that I can go to this academy with Sylphie. He's like, man, I feel a little bit nostalgia. Like I'm having a little trip down like memory lane here. Being a part of the Magicians Guild would have its benefits, but he had his family to think about. And these past few years were a sign that he was more than capable now. But then again, there was a chance that he could run into Orsted again. Though again, he catches himself here. No amount of training would ever lead him to being able to beat somebody like that. Again, Rejerd had lived for hundreds of years and he was defeated. He acknowledges that there's limits to how much you can get stronger in this world. Elise speaks up and push Rudius to checking it out, claiming that Paul would see to Zenith's return, that he'll be able to see her once she returns to Asura. And yes, the thought is that he could possibly live in Milshin, but it's like, no, technically he can't. He's got 2 wives. They don't like multiple wives in Milshin in their faith. But no, still in the end, Rudius felt like it was an attractive proposal, but Rudius decided against enrolling for now. I don't know why I have like this mental image of whenever this happens. Yes, Rudius finds himself going to sleep, and then, yes, he ends up in a blank white room. The 6th, I believe, visit of Man-God. It has been a long time. It's been since Orsted. Feels like the gap between the visits of Man-God, it gets longer and longer as this goes along. Yes, it's been 2 years since the last time he's been in this room. He even mentions to the Man-God that he doesn't feel disgusted like he typically does, which Man-God's like, you're getting used to it? I don't know. But Rudius questioned why he never came to visit him while he was searching for Zenith. And in response, the Man-God says that a lot was happening on his end. That stood out to me. Again, we kind of established, I think with the last visit of the Man-God, that this is something that it doesn't just happen. Like, he just figures, oh, this is the one and I can talk to them right now. Like, it's just not something he can do on a whim. And he can't just talk to anybody, because that was the idea that he had. Like, well, go talk to somebody else. No, you're kind of special in that regard. But here's kind of indicating that he's either been dealing with something, or he's been working with somebody else. He's doing something somewhere else. He's pulling strings, dealing with situations elsewhere. Just gonna note that. I'm gonna put that in my notes. I gotta read this. I gotta read some of this dialogue because I know that I love my Man-God voice. Okay, I think it's good. I'm glad you found your mother, though. Yeah, I never dreamed Roxy would be looking for her. She's a hard worker, after all. She really is. I'm proud of my master. It seems she's heading for the Begaric continent, too. I can't wait to see her. Are you sure? You really want your master you're so proud of to see how pathetic you look right now? Pathetic? Me? Right now? Don't you agree? After Eris ran off, you went through all that trouble to make it with that girl, Sarah. And then your nether regions wouldn't play ball. Your magic may have improved a bit, but it's hit a dead end the past few years. Even your swordsmanship hasn't gotten much better, despite practicing every day. The only thing that's really gotten stronger is your body. But is that something you want to brag about? See what an amazing pupil I become? I know exactly why he's saying this. I know exactly why he's saying all this. He's trying to put him down so bad so he's accepting of what he's about to say. To be perfectly honest. You're really laying it into me, aren't you? Okay, so what are you trying to say? Isn't it important that you hone your abilities right now? Go to the University of Magic, and you'll learn so much that your time as an adventurer will pale in comparison. What the hell? You run a cram school or something? Wait, is this what I think it is? Your usual advice? Yeah, something like that. As always, you beat around the bush and make everything sound fishy. Really? But you should really listen to what I'm telling you this time. If you go to the Begaric continent, you will definitely regret it. What? What? Regret it? Why? I can't tell you. Okay, so theories. Let me throw some theories. So what he's going to basically talk about here is that he needs to go to this university and study about the displacement incident specifically. Like, the assumption is here is that if Rudius goes there, he will figure it out, or at least something in the process of figuring it out, he's going to discover something critical. And then yes, he does also mention the aspect that you're going to fix your ED, which the assumption there is that there's a certain somebody there that's going to fix it. Already kind of drawing conclusions here. But on the opposite end, if he goes to the Begaric continent, is the fact that he's going to regret it is because he's going to leave somebody behind there, and that certain somebody is going to get involved in Ariel's fight and then possibly not be protected by Rudius and thus die? Or is going to the Begaric continent dangerous for Rudius? Him going there would cause somebody to be distracted, or he would cause them to fail to save Zenith, or something. My assumption is that if he does leave and go to the Begaric continent, he's not going to get involved with what Ariel's brewing up, and thus people involved are going to die. That's my assumption. Again, chat, zip it. Commenters, zip it. I'm just having fun speculating. Enjoy my speculations. Rudius continues, yeah, sure. Well, it's not like this the first time you've concealed something from me. You should know your reasonings sound weak. I want to take things slow, but only after my family has all been found and gathered in one place. That's why my actual advice is what I'm about to say. That's what I've been waiting for. Let's hear it. Rudius, go forth and enroll at the Renoa University of Magic. There, you must investigate the displacement incident in the Fatoa region. If you do this, you will be able to regain your abilities and confidence as a man. The fact that he goes immediately into that makes me really truly... I know why he's going directly to that, because that's the big thing in Rudius' mind right now. That is what is bugging him too damn much, and he can't let it go. And it's torturing him, and it's making him feel inadequate and broken and unable to find happiness in his eyes. But at the same time, he's not necessarily saying he's going to figure it out. He's not saying, go there and you will figure it out. No, he's saying, go there and your thing will start working again. But we'll see. Huh? Seriously? Man God? Are you saying that my ED can be cured at the university? Is that what you're saying, right? Right? At this point, he fades away. You're never gonna get... He always cuts you off, dude. He always cuts you off. But no. Crazy finally seeing the man god again. We obviously have gotten our quest marker has been set. Wherever the man god says, that's where our quest marker is. Head that way, Rudius. Everything just shifts to that's what we're doing, which is kind of unfortunate. I'm afraid of school parts of stories, okay? Anime has made me not like school stuff. Now, I will say, the fact that they're putting so much emphasis on the idea that you don't have to attend classes. You're literally going there by name alone. And you have access to all of this stuff. Just go there and have fun. That's literally what they're saying. It's a school setting segment of the story where you don't have school. So, it works in the end, but I still have fears. But no, let's be honest. The only reason he's going there is because he's going to get sucked into Ariel's fight. We all know that's where this is going. We all know that's where this is going. But now, as he desperately wants an answer from Man God, he gets awoken to a good sight, I guess. He wakes up to Ellen Elise's face right beside his. She couldn't find a man last night, shockingly. So she decided to beg Rudius to let her sleep in his bed because it's super cold. Yes, it's winter and everything. Even if she was beautiful, his Frank wasn't doing anything. He even fiddled with her body while she was sleeping, but to no avail. As he tried to get up from the bed, she wrapped herself around him like an octopus. Even though he's pressing up against her body, again, still nothingness. Nothing but emptiness and inferiority. Tears welled up in his eyes. So, this will finally go away. With that, he decided to attend the university. It's like a bam bam moment. It's like this idea that, yes, technically he doesn't want to go to this university. He has his goals. He wants to get with his family, wants to get together with them. Forget the university thing. I don't care. He meets with the man god. The man god says, go to here. That will fix your issues with your manhood. It seems comical for most people. But to Rudius right now, who feels constant emptiness, is surrounded by sex, surrounded by temptations, surrounded by relationships, denies all relationships, wants to move on and wants to mend his heart with a relationship, then wakes up in front of somebody who has so much sexual appeal, it'll go away if I just go there. I'm doing it. Which, yes, makes me believe that if Fitz is Sylphie, yeah, that sounds like that's who's going to fix his ED. Assumption. We'll see. Again, no answers. I'm already wondering, is this writer going to do the trope Fitz will not reveal who he is for as long as possible? Rudius will confront this person named Fitz and they'll wear their glasses and go, oh, it's you, Rudius. Welcome to the academy. I'm not going to reveal who I really am for the next volume before I finally take the glasses off and reveal who I am. It better not do that. Cut forward 3 months later, the snow has begun to melt. He announced his departure to Soldat and his group. He felt it was necessary as they've been adventuring so much together. He thanked them for all their help, and in return, everybody praised him with best wishes. This hurt. This actually hurt. I hurt at this part. He turned to Soldat, who wouldn't meet his eyes, and bowed. Soldat, thank you for everything. What? I mean, you took really good care of me, and I didn't do anything for you in return. I wasn't looking out for you in particular, so you have nothing to return. In fact, you helped me make some cash. Your magic skills are top-notch. The one who should be saying thanks is me. He gave a vulgar chuckle, but his expression turned awkward, and he averted his eyes. Rudius thinks he's a tsundere. What a tsundere. But, well, good for you. You're finally gonna get it fixed, right? Nothing's certain yet. Okay, well, I'm sure our group will eventually have a reason to head your way. When that happens, let's go out for drinks and women again. Soldat said it with a grin and slapped him over the back. Feeling grateful for parting nudge, Rudius set out for the Rinoa Kingdom. Oh, that hurt. That scene hurt so bad. Best bro Soldat. I hope we see him again. He's so tsundere. Soldat the tsundere. I think I heard somebody mention that, and I didn't get it at the time. But yes, that is chapter 1. Really great first 2 chapters of this volume. It already has me extremely hyped for what's to come. Again, even though I have my reservations about school segments and anime and stuff, I'm gonna trust this writer. This writer has not let me down yet. I've kind of interject my thoughts throughout these segments. I'm trying to do that more often, like stop myself and talk about this part. That way, 1, I don't forget, and 2, I don't have to just back into everything. But yeah, really great setup, getting back into the groove of things, moving forward. Again, like I mentioned in my last volume impressions, I really felt like Volume 7 was great. It is so well of really developing character in Rudius, his struggles he's facing. And yes, now coming into this whole thing, you really get why he immediately jumps this opportunity. Something can possibly get me out of this hell that I've been experiencing for the last 2 years of my life. Being unable to move on, unable to replenish my life, unable to find new relationships, unable to move on from Edis. He's been trapped, and he's been exposed, surrounded by this temptation, and he can't do anything. So we took to get a whole volume to really push that in our heads. But at the same time, like I mentioned before, Volume 7 felt like an isolation. Like the writer purposely made Volume 7 feel as if you don't see anything happening outside of Rosenberg. And I think that was for a purpose, to show how isolated Rudius was. And now that I'm getting into Volume 8, it feels refreshing in the idea that now I'm seeing at least Ellen Elise. I'm at least knowing that they're moving on into the university. We know several people are going to be there, new characters. We're seeing new people. We're moving forward. And it's got me extremely excited for what's to come. But now I'm kind of glad people kind of suggested jumping into Volume 8 to at least Chapter 1, because it makes perfect sense that Epilogue and Extra Chapter kind of just lead right into this. Because we essentially get an introduction to the university with what Ariel's doing in Volume 7's ending, and now we're seeing Rudius being invited to go to it. It just kind of leads right into it. So it kind of all worked out perfect. So hopefully this turned out to be a really solid kind of encompassing segment for Mushoku Monday. I didn't mention it, but they kind of put some emphasis on Conrad. Conrad was the leader of Cave Amond, the guy that actually went to the university for a while. At some point, he mentioned the fact that, have you never gone to a school, Rudius? And Rudius says, no, I had a tutor. And he's like, whoa, you must be rich if your family had a tutor. Yeah, I was technically part of a noble family, and he tells Conrad his last name because everybody calls him Rudius Quagmire Rudius, so nobody actually knows his family name. And so Rudius tells him, yeah, I'm part of the Grey Rats. And then Rudius mentions that he never asked Conrad his family name. So I'm curious at some point if, I guess, going out of the way to mention Conrad, have this conversation with Conrad, and then wonder what Conrad's name was, makes me believe that possibly Conrad was something special. Like, again, I don't ever, whenever the writer does stuff like this, I immediately go, what are you planning, writer? Who is Conrad? Oh, we have a Conrad hit. I searched my past documents to see if a Conrad was mentioned, and it came up with something. I got excited, but it was because I misspelled comrade. I was like, oh, bingo! No, okay, anyways, if you know who Conrad is, if he's special in some way, I don't need to know. I'm just saying, taking mental note like I always do. I write down every daggone name, even though my document for character names is huge at this point. But yeah, solid chapters, love it. Great setup for the university, great setup for Ariel and her plans. The pulling in of Rudius into the situation. Wow, it just dawned on me. I don't like Fitz. If Fitz himself calls for Rudius to have been a part of this, if Rudius gets there and Fitz is revealed to having pushed Ariel, yes, this person right here, I know him. He's great. He's incredible. Bring him in here. That means that Fitz is dragging Rudius into a war. Wow. Wow. Oof. Oof. Big oof. Now again, he can get there and it could just be Fitz going, look, you're going to get involved with this thing. Don't get involved, but enjoy. Like, be with me, hang out. Let's show you some great stuff here. Learn, expand your mind. This is exactly where, again, if it's Sylphie, we wanted to be. Get the training that you wanted to get. Opportunity is here. But don't get involved with Ariel. That's fine. But if Fitz brought Rudius there to get him involved in Ariel's war, damn. Oof. Oof. I know I'm making so many people mad in the chat right now. The simps for Fitz is huge. And I told a lot of people I was looking forward to this volume because I knew Fitz was going to be in this volume. I was looking forward to this volume because I am trying to find out, I am curious to find out why people love Fitz so much. Because, yes, up to this point of Volume 8, Chapter 1, I'm fine with Fitz. I don't find the appeal of Fitz. It just seems like a way OP character. That's all I see. It's just Fitz comes in and blows everything away. It doesn't appeal to me. But we'll see. We'll see as we get into Fitz if it's a character that ends up getting sold to me in Volume 8. But for now, with that thought in mind, a huge stain put on Fitz for me that Fitz has dragged Rudius into a war. And if Rudius was, based on the anime, the person that they admire the most, good job dragging him into a war. Anyways, excited to see Cliff. Excited to see... I'm more excited to see Zenoba. That's all I care about in this university. I want to see Zenoba again. I love Zenoba. I'm sad to see Best Boy Soldat leave, but at least we're getting the return of Best Boy Zenoba. I actually didn't think we'd be running into Zenoba that fast. I figured Zenoba would be something far later on, but it's cool to see him come in the picture. But overall, I'm really excited about this. Despite my jokes about Ariel, I'm really into Ariel's story. And if Rudius is going to be able to add something to it, great. If we can possibly find through whatever research he's going to do about the displacement, great. There's a lot of possibilities here. Kind of the doors opened up in this university for the possibilities of a lot of things, including the war, Ariel, her rise to power, Fitz meeting with Rudius, Rudius fixing his ED so he can stop whining about his ED, which he has a right to. I'm not dogging him for that. People got mad last video saying that I was bullying Rudius. It's like, no, I'm just acknowledging that he has faults and he's acknowledging his own faults. I feel for the dude. I've been through a lot of that stuff, and I've dealt with a lot of people that have been through that. Anyways, but the doors are opened. There's a lot of possibilities here, and I cannot wait to dive into it. But until the next Mushoku Mondays, that will have to wait. But yes, as per usual, greatly appreciate everybody that drops by for the premieres. Love talking to you guys in the chat. Additionally, if you love this content, as usual, please hit that like button down below. It greatly helps the channel. I appreciate it so much. Leave a comment, whatever it is. Say Happy Mushoku Mondays, whatever it is. All that stuff helps this get the algorithm, gets the name out there. I'm loving the growth. I'm loving the continuous growth of Mushoku Mondays. Every time, every week, checking the views and the amount of people that are participating. It warms my heart. As per usual, Greatly appreciate everybody that supports us through Patreon, our tips link, super thanks, and all those that are members of the channel itself. Greatly appreciate everybody that supports the channel. All of you guys mean so much to me. I hope that you guys know that you're appreciated. And until the next Mushoku Mondays, y'all take care.